Namaste and welcome to another great day at the Mike and Connor Homestead. It's a sunny day here in Reno today. Right after the rain, everything's growing really good. Awesome day. Today we're going to discuss fruit tree pruning. A lot to it. There's also grafting. I want to do that in another episode. Right now is not a good time of year to graft because, as you can see, all the trees are alive. You want to do grafting when the trees are dormant. For those of you who don't know what grafting is where if I cut off a branch of this apple tree and then put it on another apple tree, so that apple tree then produces two types of apples, or vice versa. And you can do that with all kinds of different varieties of fruit trees. You can only do it though with the same fruit. So I could only do it plum to plum, peach to peach, cherry to cherry, pear to pear. So you can't do like a half pear, half plum tree. But very interesting stuff. One of the biggest reasons why I actually got into fruit trees in general, I thought that was just a fascinating subject. The ability to make a fruit tree that can fruit at different times of the years with different kinds of fruit, and just kind of blew my mind. And with that, what makes a fruit tree a dwarf tree is when the tree gets large enough, a person will cut that tree at the bottom and connect it to a rootstock of a tree that doesn't grow that big, thereby stunting the growth of the fruit tree so it won't grow too big. The reason I like dwarf fruit trees is because they don't grow huge and you don't end up with a big mess of fruit all over your yard with birds and insects everywhere romping to eat it all, and you could never eat it all. So with one of these fruit trees at full maturity, they'll produce around 40 to 50 pieces of fruit a year. And with 9 different fruit trees, that gives me a really good variety, and I will never get bored of any of the fruit, hopefully. If so, I can always give it to other people. So shout out of the day is gonna go to my Aunt Laura, Cousin Hannah, Cousin Emily, and Uncle Mark. You guys have really been supportive of this operation, as well as helping me get married to my wife. You guys were instrumental in the preparation of our wedding, and for that I am eternally grateful to you all. You all show a definite interest in all of this as well. Aunt Laura came by the day I was planting all of these trees. I planted all 9 in a day, dug all 9 holes, filled them all, and had finished it all up. It was a bear of a work day, and Aunt Laura came by to borrow one of my trucks, and she got to see it. So Aunt Laura, thank you. So let's get on to pruning. Now, with a fruit tree, you want to make sure that there's a lot of air going through that tree. You don't want it to be like a bush with foliage everywhere. You want it open, and you want air going through it, and you want sun getting into the tree so that it can let the sun onto the fruit and make that fruit ripen and make it taste better. Because when the sun's on the fruit tastes better. So in ancient Japanese cultures, they say that you should be able to throw a cat through the tree and it could go through. And I don't know why they say cat, but it gives you the idea that you want it really open. So beginning of this year, this was year 2 of me planting these dwarf fruit trees. What I did was cut it back to 4 main stalks. I cut everything else off, and there were only 4 branches on each of these trees. And they grew really big last year. They had a lot of new growth, and I cut them way back. And I did that probably mid-March when everything was still kind of dormant. And the reason that you prune is to promote new growth. So I only want to prune when I want the tree to grow. And here in Reno, in the fall, it starts getting cold. And some people say, oh, well, you want to prune in the fall. Well, not here in Reno, because I don't want anything to grow in the fall. I want it to go to sleep. So the only time I actually prune is very early spring, because that's when I want things to just grow. And then I will leave them alone for the rest of the year, and that is the only time I prune during the year. But when I prune, I'm aggressive in pruning. I want to make sure that I get it really open so that the tree can produce fruit. And even if you're getting rid of foliage, you might say to yourself, well, doesn't that eliminate some of the fruit that I would potentially get? Well, yes, but you don't want to get too much fruit because it can overbear and kill the tree itself as well. Also, if you have too much fruit, it's just, they don't grow as big. So you end up with a bunch of immature fruit. So you always want to be thinning the fruit as you go as well. Because I'd rather get 50 really good pieces of fruit than 100 or 150 little tiny pieces of fruit that don't taste very good. Because what happens is all of that energy of the tree goes into the fruit, and if you have too much fruit, then you end up getting a bunch of just small, almost unedible pieces of fruit. So keep that in mind. Pruning you don't ever want to prune more than a third of the tree at once, because that could kill the tree. So always keep that in mind as well. Only prune a third in a year, I would say. That way then the tree can maintain, it won't lose too much of its growth to kill it. So that's the other end of pruning. Now for pruning, the tools that I prefer to use, I am left-handed, and for all of those lefties out there, including the majority of my best friends and good coworkers that I work with, they make left-handed snippers, and I believe me, as a lefty, there is nothing that feels better than to have a tool that was actually meant for me as a lefty. To use a right-handed pair of these snippers is just like doing me an injustice. I mean, everything from the blade. The blade's the opposite that it would be for a right-handed person. The handle is ergonomically meant for a left-handed person. And these are the Felco 9s. If you are right-handed and want to get something ergonomical like this, you can get the Felco 8s. I think these are about 50 bucks, and I'm not getting paid to support these, but the fact that they make them for left-handed people, that says it all for me. That sold me. I was not normally the type that likes to spend a lot of money on this kind of stuff, but this was one of the best $50 that I've ever spent. I'll probably have them forever. They're super sharp, and when you're pruning with fruit trees, when you cut it, you want that cut to be extremely clean. The cleaner the cut, the faster it'll heal, the quicker it'll grow again. And if you're cutting, don't ever use loppers, the ones with the blunt end on one side. So they'll have one sharp end and one blunt end. Don't ever use those for pruning. Those muddle the cut. They don't make a clean cut. They can create disease in the plant. If you're just processing stuff to bring to the dump, oh yeah, use the loppers. But when a tree is alive, stay away from the loppers and get yourself a good pair of snippers. I've been using these for 2 years now, and everything that I've cut from garden to orchard has came back very quickly, very clean cuts, and that's very important in this. You don't want disease, you want clean cuts, you want it to be quick and painless. And the other tool I use is the Samurai Saw. I really like this. This is probably one of the best things I've ever bought. If you don't like sawing, I'm not a huge fan of manually sawing things because it takes forever and it's just physically demanding. So I bought this thing, and I could cut through like a 6-inch diameter tree in 30 seconds. It's got an extra blade on it in the center on these little teeth, so there are plenty of teeth on it. I think this was 50 bucks too, but again, you get what you pay for. I've had all kinds of cheap versions of this, and they never do the job. And this has done the job. I've had this for 2 years as well. Very, very, very happy with this. And again, I'm not getting paid to say that. Just really like this. It's so sharp. Make sure you don't get the tool in the dirt. It'll make it dull, and you really don't want that. So go out and get this, man. This thing is awesome. I also have a pocket version of this that folds, and you can put in your pocket. I keep it in my backpack for when I'm hiking. So very good tool. I use this more for bigger branches, when these trees develop more, or just any random cutting job. So very cool tool. A couple things that I missed out in the fertilizer video that I wanted to touch on. Compost tea. I did not mention that. That is something I'm going to do a separate video on just because there's a lot to it. I missed out on giving you guys some of the fertilizers that I would use in a compost tea, such as Batswana, which just is a fancy word for bat doo-doo. There's the fish emulsion, which is just fish doo-doo. Worm castings, which are basically worm doo-doo. There's kelp, like a dehydrated kelp kind of stuff. Works really good. And you mix it all together in a water aerator situation with some compost in a bag. Let it kind of brew overnight, and it creates like a super soil or a super fertilizer for your plants. And didn't really have time to talk about that in my fertilizer series, but I am going to be using that this year because I've been told how good it works, and I'm a believer. Some people aren't fans of the concentrated doo-doos, but I feel like, hey, the more the merrier. As I've said in previous videos, you can't give it too much. So I will go over that in a video to come. Another thing that I briefly discussed in last night's videos was also the pruning of the roots. And another reason you want to do that root trimming just minimally is that way then you can make sure that the roots kind of go the directions you want them to go. Sometimes you get a weird root ball that's got like a weird root going in one direction and one that's getting in the way of it, and you could cut one of the two and it would make it all better. So I think that it's a good way to go, only with the bare roots, again, the bare root trees. So with that, I want to say mahalo for watching. I haven't been getting too many comments or questions or anything, so feel free to question or comment me on any of this stuff here, and I will continue making videos moving forward. Thank you.